Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Conant Show, and we were hoping to have a guest this evening, Tina. Tina is raising awareness about the issues surrounding Lake Onteora or Onteora Lake, and it's kind of a hot topic these days. I really don't have enough information to qualitatively talk about it, but I certainly recommend the community to look into the impacts of a cement factory, a concrete or cement factory operating in and around the surrounds of Onteora Lake. And so it's a kind of a serious thing impacting our local environment, and I think you all should look into it. And that's about all I got on that right now. And I'd like to, mark the day. Today is September 4th, 2019, and we're going out live at Woodstock TV Studio here. It's 7:02 or something like it. And this evening, I put together a little slideshow. My dear partner Laura and I went out and took some photography in Kingston, the old part of the city of Kingston. Actually, there's a lot of old parts of the city of Kingston. The more I investigate it, you may or may not know, but Kingston was the original capital of New York State. I think that's why they called it Kingstown. The king had something to do with it, and as the territory was formalized and made more uniform in its boundaries. For whatever reason, Albany became the capital. So I don't know the full history on all that, and I'm sure it's quite interesting. However, in recent past shows, I had made mention of some new weird stuff that I kind of discovered on YouTube. I like to monitor the different content creators out there, original content creators like we do here. And speaking of which, I'd like to always shout out and give thanks for Paula Gloria coming in and making these shows happen and adjusting the cameras and sound and making things nice, sweeping the floor. We do like nice. And so an interesting, thing I kind of stumbled into, and I've always been really kind of suspicious of history, and there's a famous quote, and I'm going to get it wrong, but I'm going to use it anyway, and that, I think it was Samuel Clemens, otherwise known as Mark Twain, once said that, or him and his pals were talking about history being nothing more than a pack of lies we all agree on, or something to that effect. And, this is somewhere between 1890 and 1910 that these ideas were floated. And I got to thinking about that over the years, because this is a long time ago I heard that phrase, and it didn't impact me because I had no reason for it to impact me in any meaningful way. It was something I heard, and it kind of stuck in my head because I thought it was an interesting take on history from historical characters. So, but I brought up some weird topics here, like the flat Earth, show me the curve and all that, and then, but more recently, I came across a bunch of YouTubers who are quite interested in what they call the mud flood, and I think the first YouTube channel that came out with this information was called Mud Flood. So, I think he may have been bounced off YouTube. I'm not sure, but in any event. I started looking into it and seeing some very interesting photography, antique photography, as well as people's original work. And I wish I had a good list of YouTube channels and content creators to, flip out to you off the top of my head, but I don't. So if I can think of a few, I'll pepper the show with some names that you can go look up. Anyway. If you, just as a topic, throw it in the search engine, mud flood, and stuff should come up, although they are censoring that too. And that's another big topic for all of us original content producers and TV producers and radio producers. I am so, well, I'm really not surprised, but it is surprising at how heavily the censoring tricks, because it's trickery right now. It's not like, you know, the heavy hand of communism coming down and censoring. It's more like the Houdini of bait and switch coming down and censoring through a method called shadow banning. All right, now shadow banning, it's like, what the heck is that? So these YouTube channels that present unusual information or truth, that's another one that they the powers that be seem to have a problem with, run up against being demonetized. So, you know, advertisers will be, you know, bounced off of your channel. You'll lose your income stream. And then that's one method. Another method is that they start removing your subscribers, so they have to resubscribe to stay subscribed to your channel. Another one is not being truthful with the actual metrics of your show. So there's that, and then there's, you know, you find yourself no longer put into the rotation of recommended. So you don't get exposure from YouTube itself. They just bury you. And I'm talking about YouTube channels with in some cases over 1 million subscribers. Some of them in the hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and as little as like 38 subscribers that I got. And so whether it's a big channel or a little channel, they really are coming down heavily on information filtering. Really the public is being led by the nose here. Google also, they're very big lawsuit going on, or I think it's being explored, at least pre-lawsuit, with Google having influenced elections because of their parameters of their search engines and so on. So if you want to look something up, say counter argument to global warming, and you go through a Google search engine, or really any search engine, because I guess it all goes back to Google anyway, you are directed to all of the arguments for global warming and not against it. So, it's that kind of thing being applied to politics, so that, specific ideologies or politicians will not come up in the search engines that you're looking for. Though you want to hear their message, you won't be able to get their message because they're simply not provided in a search engine. So you have to actually go to the actual content provider or creator, to their YouTube channel or to their website. Exactly, and that's about the only way to get to it. The search engines will no longer bring you to what you want to look for independently of the thought police. So there's that. You should all be aware of it. It's happening in our country. It's happening now, and it's real. So censorship in YouTube and Google land and Yahoo and all the other search engines. I think the DuckDuckGo is a search engine that is so far pretty much neutral, and there's a couple others I should mention. But again, I'm winging it tonight. We don't have our guest, and I gotta come up with ideas here as I'm going. So now the slideshow. Sure, I don't know. It doesn't really matter where we start. Now, Laura and I went down to Kingston last weekend or the weekend before, I can't remember. And we decided that, this was a good opportunity. We finally had an actual, 4 hours off from our busy lives. And to take our own photographs of old buildings and sort of show the anomalies with them. Paula, actually, is there a way to go right actually to the very, very top of the list? you're in real deep. I mean, probably just back there it is. That's the first one. That building there. And if you go back to, nope, the other direction. One a little more. Okay, I think this starts our thing. What are we looking at here? We're looking at the base of an older building. That building there. We're looking at the driveway. You see the driveway going up. So this is a detail, and what you're seeing there is the top of a window frame. That's at the top of a window frame. All right. Now you can see in this further down, this is another window frame, and you can actually still see the old brickwork. All right. So there is a bottom floor here that has been subdued by some kind of an event. Now this is, yeah, that's yeah, and then that's another, yeah. So you can clearly see that there's been something has happened to change the geography around this building, or to change the landscape. And that's an old building in the old part of Kingston, New York, very close to the courthouse, actually, all within walking distance of the courthouse. Well, yeah, I'm actually really quite curious, what's going on underground, all right? Because there's this side of the building, and then there's the opposite side of the building. I thought I took pictures of it, and that looks to be a different building altogether, which means, yeah, okay, that's in a different part of town. So maybe if you went the other direction, there you go. That's it. That's the correct direction for this program. All right, so we got back up. See, you can still see the red building. If we could back up a little bit. All right, it seems like you're just advancing along. All right, there you go. All right, so that's now this is coming around to the other side of the building, and you can see that there's been stonework, brickwork underneath the window on the right there. So there's something different there going on, and so I kind of wanted to capture that, how these buildings over the centuries are reshaped. And we can advance one here. And that's actually, yeah, that's the next building down from that brick building. And I had noticed that the sidewalk is very, very high on the left, but right there where that handrail is on the right, that picture before that was looking down into that hole. That is like a little cliff there. It's a drop off down to a lower yard, held with a retaining wall. Yeah. So you can see the windows along the bottom there, along the sidewalk, center of the very center, right in there. Right below that bank of windows there are the tops of other windows, which are awfully close to the ones above them. All right, so that kind of doesn't make sense. Ordinarily the bottom edge of a window would be about 3 feet, 36 inches, 30 to 36 inches from your floor level. So if you run your cursor right there, there's the bottom of the window, and you were to go and drop that down to the sidewalk, that would be, you would assume, where the floor would be. Right? All right, now I didn't go in the building, so I don't know how that looks on the inside, but the stonework on the outside facade there still shows a window, and in mud flood world, that would have been the first floor, and these new windows were cut in, and they had probably moved the floors around on the inside, up and down, to adjust, is a thought. Now, I restore antique buildings, and I would love to get into some of these buildings. I'd love to get into some of these buildings that show this kind of strangeness. Sure. If you want to give me a shout, give me a call. My cell is 347-754-1388, and you can direct me to your old house if you have an old house that's curious and has some anomalies with the foundations and floors and window heights and such. I'm interested. Sure. Yeah, and the number here at the studio while I'm going out live here is 845-679 7777. That's 845-679-7777 if you have some ideas or pointers. All right, so you're run ahead a little bit here. Go back now. All right, so the next one, yeah. See now we're looking at that same building, and we're looking over the railing down into the hole, and you can sort of see that it's the one window that seems to be in keeping with the correct floor height is the one next to the railing. If you go over to the right further, it does appear that they've reconfigured something there so that the windows in the upper layers there don't seem to be making sense with the windows below them. There's not enough room to stand comfortably, is what I'm saying, in either event. Where is the floor? Okay, trying to imagine the floor should be about at the very tippy top of that bottom window that's bricked up underneath it, if you can see, if that follows. But why? How does that work? So this is one of the really old buildings, and a lot of the mud flood buildings, in, like say the brownstones in Manhattan, have step ups to the first floor. And now we're looking here, we're seeing steps up to the first floor. Well, is that really the first floor? You see? So they punched in a new doorway. They had to reconfigure the building, and they say that frequently they tried digging the mud away from the buildings, but they would just get tired of it, and they would just move to the second floor as the first floor. And hence, this building here does show mud flood evidence according to those parameters. The next picture there. So now we're looking at the very front of it. So you can see again, the quote unquote basement windows, how close they are to that first floor. And then you have the facade going up from the sidewalk to what would be the first floor. So, if we were to draw a line from the top step underneath that doorway where the two pillars are, right? Horizontally underneath the windows, we're looking at windows that are about, the bottom of the sash would be at your knee. If that's a good, way to size up where is the floor, assuming that the floor is at the bottom of the door going in, these windows are really low. I mean, really low. And that doesn't make sense in mud flood world. All right, moving along. So why did I take a picture of this? The reason I took this picture is to show the ornate and complex nature of the supports there for that door ledge, all right, the rain fly over the door. And it is so well sculpted. You don't really see that after 1890. Look at that. I mean, that is beautiful, beautiful work, however it was made. And it looks to be carved. It looks to be stone, but it could be cast. But, if we're talking about a building that's, say, 1750s, would they be casting concrete in the 1750s in Kingston, New York? Or, I don't know. But that's awfully beautiful work, and it's awfully ornate, and it's not... let me put this into context. Say this building, is roughly 1750s. The settlement of the Hudson Valley didn't really get going till the 1650s, right? The oldest standing building in Connecticut, I worked on it for 3 years, is a Sandmeyer house, and its foundation is 1646, and that's almost 50 miles due east of here. All right, so we're in that same kind of category of location, up the Hudson River or up the Housatonic River. They followed the rivers going up, so they tell us, whoever they are, the historians, lying to us all the time about everything. So we really can't trust the dates of anything. All right, so this is, the standard history is to tell us that these beautiful buildings, and believe me, some of them are gorgeous buildings, were built in this short period of time between, say, the post-Indian Wars. By 1650, they were still battling the Indians in the neighborhood here, folks. In fact, by 1750, warfare was still quite active between the local inhabitants of this region, the Catskills and the Connecticut and so on, and the settlers and the colonists and so on. So where did the technology and the skill set and the manpower come from to be building such ornate buildings? At claim, even by 1750 to 1800, we're still a very young nation. Where's the infrastructure for all of this stuff? How did it happen? How did we go from native forests and Stone Age lifestyle of the original inhabitants to by 1900 Manhattan is fully built out, and so is San Francisco by 1900. We're not talking a whole lot of time. So this is a piece of evidence of that, what we call antiquitech. We don't know, we don't really know how that almost looks like it was laser printed. That's how precise this stuff is. Look how beautiful that is. All right, then the next one after that, moving right along. Okay, now this is the same building, but on the opposite side. Yes, now we were wrapping around to the other side because I want to see what's going on below ground. And that's below ground on the other side. You can you see the steps coming down from up on the street, and there you go. Right in this photograph, those steps go up to the street that we were just looking at with the building with that cornice there. Yeah, yep. All right. So now we're going.
We're looking way over here.
Yes. Yep. We're on the left. Okay. Now we're looking down below the street level, and I said, wow, it's neat. And you can't use those steps, by the way. They've got it walled off at the top there. That just exists, kind of like because it once was used. I think. I don't know. I may or may not have taken a picture of that. But my point is now we're well below grade. Street level is up at least 6-8 feet, and here is clearly it was originally an old door. It was an entranceway to this building. Because of the lintel over the top of that modern door. That is the style, and that is consistent with an entryway from the original period, whatever original. What's that? No, the ground may not be all the way excavated, and if you notice, the staircase is coming right in front of the door. So there's a real challenge there for engineering. And so moving right along, let's go to the next one here. All right, now I took a picture of this cupola because in what they call antiquitech is one of these phrases that these mud flooders have come up with, saying that many of these domes and dome-shaped protrusions on top of buildings were actually atmospheric energy collectors, and that they were drawing electricity from the air, and they call it, this is part of their antiquitech, and it was wirelessly powering things like fireless fireplaces. There are this kind of grand mansion fireplace that actually you don't burn anything in it, and there's no chimney really attached to them. They just have a metal plate in the back, and then these two balls in the front on top of metal spires. And you've probably seen those in some of those. Yeah. Yes. Right. Okay. So I'm showing that to give you an idea of what just a few hundred years ago, they were collecting electricity with and powering their civilization. And that's right, folks. You just heard me say a couple hundred years ago. We don't know nothing. Yeah, we don't know nothing. And in the previous show that I did on this, I did show you some stock images from the computer from various websites of these fantastic buildings and these buildings that were these cityscapes. The best one that comes to mind right now is San Francisco, just prior to the big earthquake or the fire or whatever it is that they had, and that conveniently gets rid of an awful lot of evidence. In I think it was 1909 or 1908, a lot of destruction happened in 1909, 1908. Chicago burned, San Francisco went, a lot of damage, a lot of destruction. But what you're seeing, though, in these old antique photographs is you're seeing this huge build-out of cityscape. I mean, from side to side in the horizon in these beautiful landscapes. Who built it? You know, the gold rush to San Francisco was only 50 years earlier. California was not settled like the East Coast had at least a couple hundred years. The West Coast, you're only talking about 50 years before they're crediting these mansions and huge built-out cities. Well, the mudflooders are saying, those cities were already there. They just got repopulated. Something happened. So this kind of style of cupola is consistent with what they call Tartarian or Greco-Roman architecture. And the Tartarian issue is a whole other thing. And the weather vane at the top is really disguising an antenna. That's the premise of these things. I'm not saying that this one is, but this is the style in which these objects were. Okay, here we go. This is, I believe, the courthouse in the current courthouse in Kingston at parking lot level, and we noticed an awful lot of subterranean windows going on that are kind of blocked off. And the other thing is the lowest tier of block are a very big block, which is very ungainly to handle. Yeah, you can move right along that next one. Let's look at this. Here we have a very old style window. When you have the small panes, this looks like 8/8, 12/12 or 12/8. That refers to the number of panes in the sashes. Indicate old, okay? So these look to be from the 1800s, these particular windows, and they look like they are replacement windows, okay? Anyway, in looking this window wells, okay, yeah, these are 8/8s. And the reason why, one would ask, well, why did they have so many little panes in the windows? Why so many? Well, the thing is that transporting glass from Europe on ships that were, sail driven, was a difficult thing, and shipping small panes of glass ensured that you would have less breakage, because large panes of glass were far more difficult to package and protect. All right, so here we go. What is that door doing on top of that window? And that's what alerted me to something has gone very, very weird with the old courthouse.
These aren't cut, right?
No, those are actually hinges, and those are very old hinges. Those are screw hinges, they call them. They screw into the building on a big lag bolt type screw, and then they have a little flat area with an axle coming up, so that the two hinges on the actual door come down onto them. So that looked like it was a double door. It came out. Now maybe it was like a what do they call those? No, when you have shutters, like shutters to protect from Indians, from bows and arrows and rocks and stuff. Yeah, all right, there's the front. All right, go keep back on that one, because this is very curious, because you have some very old rock in there in that masonry work. But then when you look at the windows, can you go back one more? All right, now look at this. Look at the style of construction of those window bays, which are cordoned off, as you can see, and the style of masonry of the actual building and the window, around the window. There, it is absolutely a whole nother era later. So, did somebody engineer and design this building for that? I don't think so. They must have had these windows were below grade and they had to dig it out.
They're repurposing.
They're repurposing, or they were trying to recover. They were, these buildings. So this is evidence of a mud flood, because if those window wells were original, they would have been consistent with the style of construction of the day. And it's not. Those look like very modern, almost like brick, not brick, but cinder block or some kind of block. That's a very modern block, and those are very well, trimmed bluestone capstones on top of it. That doesn't really say anything, but that block is not consistent with the age and materials of the building itself. So there you go. That's and also on the lower right corner, just above that orange wood chips, you can see something's been done there. That's major work, and that's something went on there structurally with the building to do that much alteration to the exterior. Okay, now we can move on. All right, now we're looking at the front, and I think that's the courthouse. Yeah. So 1818, that's pretty early. And the style of those sashes in the windows is 12 over 12, which is consistent with that era, even though those windows are very big, and they are big. Very grand, very grand. And okay, let's move on to that. All right, so this is wrapping around to the other side of the courthouse building. And here we have an entrance that is below grade. You have to walk down a flight of steps to get in the building. And that door, hard to tell, but it looks like it's been modified, but there is a huge lintel over the top of it, which might indicate that it was originally an entryway. But hard to say, because so much has been modified. And again, I don't know the history of Kingston, so I can't really speak to that. But there you go. Here's a subterranean entryway right from the parking lot. Now, this building is exactly the same parking lot, just kitty corner from the courthouse. And what grabbed our attention is all the bricked up windows on the bottom floor there. They're all bricked up, and I wish we could zoom in. We can't really zoom in, but you can still see that the brick around the new brick, and there's different kinds of new brick. Some brick is much newer, like that one you just had the cursor on there. That brick there in that window is much older than some of the other stuff. But if you go all the way to the right of the screen, a little more, that field there, that part of the building, a little higher, right in there, that's old brick, going all the way up to the second floor, third floor, really. And it almost looks like there had been a demarcation right below those top windows. You see the windows in the frame, you can see like some kind of build out. If you follow that curved conduit over to the center, right there. See that there? All right, there is a line that goes all the way across the building following that basic thing. They're all, and all the way back. And you'll notice a difference in color between the brick above and the brick below. It is almost as though something's been covered and then cleaned away. Almost as though. Don't know for certain, but we do know that there's been an awful lot of alteration on that bottom floor. You can see the big gray door, the industrial door in the middle of the screen there, well, right above it. Was that a window? And they busted through a window to make a door? Looks like it. And you can see very old windows that have been bricked up there for whatever purpose. So there you go, something odd. And here we go. This is the courthouse. I believe it's or at least in that vicinity. I believe it to be. And we have some old, some windows. They were once windows, and there they are. They've done a very nice job of patching them in with rock. And that's the parking lot at grade level. And that's another view of that building to give a sense of how the back of the building is the old brick, but on the side of the building it had gotten a little facelift. They put some kind of stucco over it, and that kind of hides the antiquity of the brick, of how old that building is. So how old really is it? And now we can move along. Now this is a curious one. That's that yellow brick, which is, in my mind, the yellow brick is a pretty modern stuff, like from the 40s maybe and 60s, 1940s, 1960s. It's kind of an institutional brick that a lot of things are made out of. But then when you look at that demarcation of I'm going to call it a lintel. It's that stone piece that's long and horizontal, and it has one division. And then below that, you can just barely see the old original stonework. There's the old work. There's the old stonework, which is almost entirely covered with pavement. And I think that's a window. I think you got bits of a window showing through that didn't get covered. So they worked in a hurry. And that's what these mud flood guys are saying, is that they were working really fast with limited populations to actually do the work. So and a lot of, they would just like dig out half of the building and then just, build a retaining wall and make the entrance way on the second floor. And go on to the next building. They just would, and why was the hurry? So this is something, that next picture is great. I love this part of this is across the street from the courthouse on Wall Street in Kingston, New York. And this is, to me, again, it's like, all right, who built this? 1890s? No, 1790s, 1810, that era? That's a lot of brick. Where was the brick factory? Where who made the very ornate edging along the top of these buildings? They're beautiful. If you get to Kingston and you look at some of this stuff, it's really inconsistent with how new. This is old world stuff. This is not new world stuff. This is old world stuff, is I guess what I'm trying to say. And let's move to the next one. So here we have that sort of a nice little panoramic view, or not panoramic, but a good street view.
Pretty decent clouds, too.
Yeah, some nice clouds there that day. And just to put into context what, the modern, how it looks down there. So this next picture, that is, I think, the old Dutch church in the old section there. And what grabbed my attention is a couple of things. For one thing, the tombstones are half buried. Tombstones are usually double that height. So they're awfully, I don't think they eroded down so much as the earth came up. I mean, so that's a little weird, okay? But then we look at the building itself, and you see in what's clearly an old part of it, a door that the arch over the door, that motif, that round arch, is mirrored in the newer part. because you can see there's a newer part that's been blended into it all. Okay? But that door there is certainly below grade. And I don't even know if that door is usable. I can't, there's a gravestone in front of it, and so we're not at a good angle to see. I hope I follow up with a closer picture. But this building, this old church is very, very old, and it is, a possible example of having been mud flooded. And a definition of that is it's not like a normal flood. A mud flood is when the earth liquefies. It's called liquefaction. And you don't need a lot of rain. Moisture, of course, is good to make this phenomena happen. What you need is a certain type of earthquake, which is a steady shaking for a decent period of time in combination with wet conditions. And you will have very quickly the earth just dissolve into a liquid state. It's the bizarrest thing. And then it moves. It goes downhill from wherever it is. It goes downhill, and then when the shaking stops, the mud sets up like Jello. It just sort of sets up and then it becomes hard, and then you've got all these inundated buildings that you then have to dig out for a couple of generations to get them back to, because it's a new ground level. The ground actually moves. See, there's something does appear to have happened here to bring the grade up so high. And so the next one here, there we go. So they're doing a lot of work on that church there. They're probably putting in a 5G cell tower. I wish I was kidding, but I don't know, and I can only make fun of that. So here's another building. Very, very interesting brickwork, very reminiscent of England. Something Laura opened up with right away. She goes, "What? Wait, where's that? That doesn't look right." So there's something going on there. And I think we're back to the church. Here we have a lower level of windows. There we go. That they've even just blocked them up, and then they just put trap rock into the window wells that must have been engineered somewhat after the fact. So something happened there. Here's the church. Now what I'm showing up there is that this church has something like a tower or a parapet on it. And there's two. This one looks like, there might be a bell in it, right? A belfry. And let's see what the next one shows. But then the other one, it's, sister. This is on the left, looking at it. I think that's the main entrance, right? On the right side of the screen. They bricked it up. They blocked it up, and it to me looks more like the protective windows for archers or gunmen at the top of a fort. It looks more like a parapet to me. It looks like an embattlement, So I was just curious about all of that, maybe this building was a stronghold before it was a church. I don't know. I'm just speculating. So here we have more underground stuff going on. This is still in the general neighborhood of the old part of Kingston. Really impressive slabs of bluestone there. I think that's bluestone, and we got that brickwork. But what grabbed my attention is the below grade doorway on that building. In fact, they've had to cordon off that whole front of that building so you don't go falling down into the dugout. Okay, so that's a curious one. All right, moving right along, there we go. This is a detail of that. This is why I was enamored with this. I mean, look at the nonsense going on here.
So nobody uses that door?
No, they use it. They could get down to it from that other set of steps, but it's just completely incongruous. Well, actually, there's a set of steps that go down right in front of us there. But there's some old brick. There's some bluestone, but this. that's the a stone block. Yep. And it appears to me that this had been dug away and recovered from an event that I'm going to look for in some old records here, and see if I can get into some historical society records of earthquakes or floods. Well, if anybody is interested in or has information on these kinds of environmental effects of mud flood or flooding in Kingston and old buildings, and you can contact me directly at 347-754-1388, or you can call in at the at the TV station here at 845-679-7777. 679-7777. That's only when I'm broadcasting live, folks. When this goes into rotation, you have to pay attention to the date that I give you at the beginning of the show. Okay? All right. Mud flood evidence. And it was, I have to tell you, folks, I wasn't expecting much of a find, but the more Laura and I walked around, the more we started seeing. And here we go again. Let's just back up. I think that's a context picture. So here we notice, hey, it looks like they're doing some work on that building. Let's see what that's about. And boy, that door doesn't look proportionate. The windows and the door, in this old building, and awfully grand windows there. I wonder how high they really go. So these are the kinds of the thoughts I was having when I was looking at this building. And then we get a little closer to it, and we look at the ground level. And by golly, what am I looking at? I'm looking at much newer construction above the lintel, but below the lintel, that long flat rock there that's underneath the doors, that's some old brick, very old brick. Brick not inconsistent with these mud flood buildings and ancient buildings. And let's move on to the next picture, because I think, I love this picture. I love this picture because you can see where they made a window well for what was probably a window underneath that lintel there, and then just elected, okay, you know what, we're just going to pave over all of this and we're going to fill it in. So they're filling it in, and then you look to the right there's just a little sliver of the old brick showing, and there it is. There's just more building going down below, and then you've got the new brick, and that's very new brick, reusing the old foundation. What's going on here, folks? Don't know. Now, that building there was across the street, and the first thing we noticed was windows below grade again. And they look to be, some pretty substantial windows, and they're half sticking out of the pavement there, and that wraps around to the other side of the building. The shadow side of the building on the right there, you can see more windows that are half buried underneath the parking lot. And here's a close-up of that. And again, awfully close to the bottom of those windowsills up above. Very, very strange to me at how low these windows would have to be at the floor level. Very odd, very odd. Again, here you go. Below grade, right up that window or that door on the below grade there, it comes right up to the top of the landing, which would essentially be the floor level of the room above it. And it just doesn't seem that there's enough room. It just seems very architecturally strangely configured. That's the same building, and here you can see above the arch over the window, and then you look below, same beautifully articulated arch. The construction was beautiful. For basement windows, seems a little odd. And there's no window well, it's just pavement coming right up to the edge of the window itself. And that grabbed my attention as being a little on the strange.
Yeah, like another line.
There's another line. Yeah. And that's under the landing. So it was a window, and that's how you get to the door, is in that little. So the mud flooders would say, no, that's actually the original bottom floor, and that they had to build stairs up to the next floor, and usually they bust through a window to make a front entrance or something like it. So that's a window, yeah. All right, yeah, we moved along. Right, again, along the driveway there. Look at this. Both sides of the street, windows largely covered by road. And it's just more. All right, this is a really interesting one. I think this is the backside of the church. Or no, no, it's not. This is the backside of the old Senate House. There's the church, or no. No, I don't know if that's the Senate House or not. That's near the church, though. And there's Laura. Yeah. Going to investigate. Okay, why did I take this picture? I took this picture because the scale, the proportions are wrong. And what do I mean by that? When you look at the what looks like a chapel, that part right in the center of the frame there, it kind of looks a little bit chapel-like. Yeah, the proportions are wrong. The windows are so close to the earth, it just looks short and stubby. And I know that they built short and stubby, or it's claimed that these buildings were built short and stubby. I don't know that they actually were. But maybe, again, this could be evidence of the architecture not being pleasant to the eye, or making a lot of sense in its dimensions, in its form, could in fact be evidence that it was actually a more slender, higher structure and not quite so squat and stubby looking. Because to me, it does look a little squat and stubby, and it doesn't look proportionate for what we are looking at, for what we're seeing. And then the next one is windows going below grade. Were they designed that way? I don't think so. And this is another part of the same area in Kingston. Very old building, and it's had a lot of different incarnations here, so it seems. And I'm seeing very old rock and very old windows below the clapboard. And the clapboard's the white wooden siding there. You see that? And that door goes below grade. You have to go down steps to get into that bottom part there. And then the other sides of the building are much higher. I think there's one picture. If you go back one. Sure. Oh, we only got 5 minutes. So that, what you're looking at there is formerly a carriage house. That's where they kept the horses, folks. That's where the horses and buggies for the fire department or whomever. That's a carriage house. You can see those were all big garage doors, and they're very beautifully, stylized brickwork on that building. There's like stores. There's a record store there.
Was that Rhino Records?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Just a couple more. There you go. That's certainly a very old brick building that's been repurposed on the bottom. Look at that. That's fabulous. And then another one. Let's keep moving. And the windows are awfully low to the ground there, but they're not. So what's going on? That seems a little strange. We just thought that was a weird looking building. And I believe that's the old Senate House. Yep, that's the Senate House, and that's subterranean. They had to build a deck to go up to one, and they had to build down below grade to get to the other door. So that's something goofy with the where the ground level really is. So I figured I'd show how that ended up looking. So the building, what does that say? 1827? Senate
1927.
All right, so they did something to the building in 1927. I guess maybe that's when they turned it into a museum. I'm not sure. but it's a very old structure. It's much older than that. That was an old Dutch farmhouse originally.
That's where the Constitution, preamble.
Yeah. Okay. That went by fast. So, yeah, there's more pictures. We can keep rolling along here. No, we're going the other direction. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. That's again, these windows are really subterranean. This is a different building in the same neighborhood. And what got my attention is that the slope of the grade of the street level does not stay consistent, and shows how the windows go to different heights as it goes along. Let's see if I got more than one shot of that. Yeah, there you go. So, oh, that's the end. There you go. Yeah. So I was very fascinated by how that happens. So that was a quick hour there, folks. Very exciting to see, some real photography locally done, and to see evidence of something going on with the environment a couple hundred years ago. And the last real serious solar minimum is about 200 years ago. I think they called it the Dalton minimum. I'm not sure. And when that happened, there was a great deal of catastrophic weather going on, very similar to the events that we're having today. And I'd like to continue to recommend everybody out there to think about food security, buying and saving heirloom seeds, non-GMO stuff, and learn how to sprout and keep gardens and stuff coming up the following years, because the growing food is going to have to really be local food for local people. It's really going to have to go that way, and in a hurry. That's grand solar minimum stuff, but we're out of time to talk about it. And I want to thank you all for tuning in and checking my show out through the week.
Give your number again.
And if you want to contact me about your old building, do a little research, 347-754-1388.
We'll bring a camera out to you.
And we'll do some photographic documentation. That would be a fabulous thing. And again, thanks to Paula Gloria for teching for me this evening, and I hope you all have a wonderful week.